Everybody, welcome for another night of Revelation. Daniel tonight. Um, Something very important I think we need to address right off the bat. I think someone here has a birthday today. I think, what, you're 35 now? There it is, a big smile. So happy birthday to her. All right, so the important stuff's off the table. Now we can talk about boring stuff. All right, so tonight we're going to do Daniel 7. It's up on the board. We did 2 last week, and we're going to do 7 this week. We're going to do the entire chapter, and you can ask my wife. This was tough because I want to go down every possible rabbit hole there is, but I had to go back and kind of delete some of my thoughts, some things I have to do, keep to the context that we're talking about. I will brief some things, bring them up, but we're not going to drive super hard into it. But there's a lot of things here I do want you to recognize and see. So it's going to be kind of long. It's not going to be that long. And then when we finish it up, there's going to be a couple things that, a couple questions you may have, or if you don't, I'm going to throw up a couple questions that you should have, and then I'm going to go ahead and answer those to understand why this is written the way it's written. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing, before I go into it and start reading it, I'm going to go ahead and there's a couple words in here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what they are now. So when we get into it, you already know what it's saying. And as we go through the first part, before we get to the interpretation of this vision that Daniel has, I'm going to do more breakdown then. And then some of you it might not completely click 100% until it gets to the interpretation of the dream, where we can just pretty much read right through it. So you just get one big block, and then everything will just kind of make sense. So that's how I'm going to work at this tonight, because if I did it my other way I wanted to, I'd be breaking down so many words, so many sentences, going to so many verses and all over the Bible, and we would not finish tonight. It'd probably be like a 3 or 4 week study. So anyways, the first word, one of the words you're going to see in here is the word sea, S-E-A. All right, that's the first word up here, and it's pronounced yam. It's not a yam. It's not a vegetable. It's yam, and the sea means the sea, like for them at the time would be the Mediterranean Sea, but you also had other seas. But if it says the Great Sea, they would be referring to, if it's in context, the Mediterranean Sea was considered the Great Sea to them. So it's a big deal to them, obviously, being in that area. But it also is a metaphoric word for people. So if you hear the word sea, don't try to picture in your head actually, water. It's actually talking about a people, or if it says a great sea, in context, it's talking about a lot of people or great people in that area. Now, the other thing is, you're going to see this going to have the king's name now is Belshazzar, but it's not Belteshazzar, which is what Daniel was given his name. So the Belteshazzar, which was Daniel, they're so close, is Bel protects the king or Bel's prince. So Bel was a god, but also Bel and Baal is the same god, just 2 kind of different names. The reason why it's important is because Belshazzar, the king that's reigning right now, his name is Belshazzar, and it means Baal protect the king. So one's a prince, then one is protected by Baal. Don't have to go down a real weird rabbit hole in here, but that way when we do see this word in here, Belshazzar, you're not thinking Daniel, who got the name Belteshazzar. So let you guys know that. Now, another big one we're going to talk about tonight is the word time. And this next word up here is Idon. All right, and at the back side of it, that's an I-N, almost like a W, sorry. Could be added to the end, so it could be Idonin. That's why it's on there. So what time is, or Idona means, technically, it's a time of 1 year. So you see the word time, and it stands alone, it's talking about 1 year. If the word is Idonin, and it has an I-N at the end of it, then it is a plural form of Idon, or of Idon, of a year. So that would mean if Idon is 1 year, then Idonin is 2 years. That makes sense? Now, it also depends upon the context that's being written. So if it says something like, it does different ways in the Bible, but a period of time. So now, since period and time is all conjuncted together, then there might be another context to this, what that period means in terms of a time. Now, time no longer necessarily means it's 1 year. It has something to do with that period. And there's times that also speak about a time of a worker's labor. So the concept of a worker's labor, it wouldn't be 1 year. It was a contract that would be made they would make with somebody. And that contract could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that would say a time of a worker's labor. So that would only be a distinct time, but you don't know what it is unless you know what that contract was. So you got to look at the words around it to understand that. But that's what a dawn is. And to give kind of a little example of reading how words are worded when it comes out to a transliteration. And that's this next, not these ones, these three right here is doulos, diakonos, and misthios. Right? These words could show up in your Bible with the word servant. Right? Because they all do mean a form of a servant. But there's three different forms of a servant. And that can confuse people and not know exactly what it's talking about. So, for instance, doulos, we already done this word. This is a bond servant, or as we also like people use, it can also be the word slave, meaning someone who's bonded to somebody. You sold yourself into slavery, or hey, we already went through this, but I don't have money, so I'm going to sell myself and work for you, or here's my property to pay it off. So that's one form. Another one is diakonos, is servant. Now, this type of servant, we get the word deacon from this. So this is a servant, someone who works but isn't under contract, and generally is not making any money. Right? So he's a servant. Then the next one is misthios, which can still translate to servant. This type of a servant here is actually what you would think of a laborer. So if you went in and said, hey, I'm going to work for you for a year and a half, make X amount of dollars an hour, you're not a bond servant because you did not sell yourself to him. You're just selling labor. Then that would make you basically an employee, but it's another form of servant. So every time these words come up, these three words here, just in that respect, make a difference. So this misthios word, when we go back to the concept of time, if it's talking about a misthios, all right, you sold yourself for labor in terms of like dollars per hour for a certain period of time, and the word time is there, then that would tell us that it'd be, if you made the deal for a year and a half, that word time is no longer 1 year. It's the time of the contract that you signed would now be a year and a half. That would be the form of that word time. So just because you see the word time in here, I don't want you guys, if you read in your Bible, go, oh, this is exactly 1 year. Oh, this is 1 year. This is 1 year. It depends upon the words around it. So I'm just giving you guys a little insight to that piece right there, because the word dawn is going to come up tonight. That's why I want you guys to see it, so I don't have to stop, break it down like I did now. You already have a concept to it. I'll brief it, and we can move on through. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Daniel 7. We're going to read 1 through all of it. I don't know what the last verse is, 28, I think. We'll read all of it. So in the first year of Belshazzar, that king of Babylon. Now, his first year was in 553 BC. And if you remember, this is not the same king as Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar took reign in 605. So this is 52 years later, and Daniel is still interpreting dreams, interpreting visions, doing his thing. And it says in chapter 1 that him and his buddies he's with were young men. I haven't looked up, really didn't dig into what young men is, but I'm guessing between like the 16, 20-year-old thing, maybe 20. So now we're looking at Daniel from one before, say he was 20 years old in that area. Now he's looking at being about 70, somewhere around 70 years old. So he has been this guy that's been the interpreter and understanding for a long period of time, still in Babylon, because Jeremiah tells us that the Babylonian Empire would prevail and Jews would be in exile for 70 years. This is around the 52nd year, and it actually, prophecy fulfilled itself. The Babylonian Empire, when Jews were exiled to them, was 70 years. So anyways, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and a vision of his head as he lay in his bed. Then he wrote down the dream and told the sum of the matter. Okay. This here, verse 1, I want you to remember, we're going to hit it again a little bit later for a reason, but it's kind of weird how this reads because the word sum. Now, the word sum is this word, resh, R-E-S-H. So resh, we think of sum, we think of like the sum of something we're adding up, the final outcome, the more. But actually, it does mean sum, but not in the way that you're thinking. It means head, chief, or main. So he told the sum, the main thing, because the next part it says of the matter. So the most important, the main aspect of what this vision is, I have a purpose behind it. the main aspect of this vision is what he is now going to write down. And that's important to understand. It's not the entire thing. It's not every detail, but there is a reason why I'm only telling you this. This is the main point I'm making with you. All right. So now moving on to Daniel 7 verse 2. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, it's the peoples, and four great beasts come up out of the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of the man was given to it. All right, so we'll hold there for a second. So if you remember back to Nebuchadnezzar's statue, this is in the order it's going. This is the head of gold. This is talking about, in that thing, of the Babylonian Empire, and specifically actually Nebuchadnezzar. So we're going to break this down a little bit. So what I want to do, if we go ahead, I'm going to give you a little bit of a map. So, well, before you put the map. So when it says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, all right, the lion is representative of Babylon. And why? Well, one, because Nebuchadnezzar actually built a lion and he had it in his empire. But second reason on top of that is the concept of the lion. This is what represented him. If you think of Daniel in the lion's den, all right, so they are the lion. They are a fierce, ferocious Babylonian empire, which is kind of interesting if you want to look at the thing of Daniel in the lion's den. We think it's just like this cool little story. No, it's Daniel was delivered by Christ from the hand of the lion, by the hand of Babylon. But let's go ahead and put up that picture. Oh, there it is. All right, so if you remember the picture I showed last week that's over there in Babel or Babylon, right? This is a different one because I didn't get the whole picture in there. So if you look way up at the top, it says Babylon. And now this is the temple, outer core of the temple. And I told you up here, they're still doing excavation work. We had other pictures of it. But this is the same area. I just cut it off right at the bottom of that little cross thing, or the little castle looking thing. So in Babylon, in Babel today, that's where the Babel lion is actually standing today, that Nebuchadnezzar actually had built. And here's a picture of the Babel lion itself. There it is right there. Now, looks like a pig. It looks like all kinds of funky things. A bear. I get it. So what happened was, I don't remember exactly. It was either under the Medo-Persian Empire or the Grecian Empire, but either one of them, they thought the thing was made of gold. So they were hacking it up and chopping it down, trying to like find gold, and they come to find out it's like, oh, it's just a stupid rock. But this was a better looking lion probably 4,500 years ago or so. This here is a dude. It's a person laying under it because that's what Babylon did. They crushed people. So to give you a little insight on that. So next, and it talks about the eagle's wings, and he had eagle's wings. Now this is the bear is of Babylon, the kingdom of Babylon. The eagle and the eagle wings represent Nebuchadnezzar himself. And now this is the only one I'm going to break down this far tonight, because you'll see this is going to take me a couple minutes. I don't want to do this every single time. But anyways, so the question is like, well, how does a lion have eagle's wings? Well, the lion is Babylon, and the eagle's wings represent Nebuchadnezzar. So in Ezekiel 17, we're going to read 11 through 15, but I'm going to give you a little insight to the story, because if you go and read it, it's a little confusing because it is a parable. Go figure. They have one of those things in the Bible, a couple of them. So if you read Ezekiel 17, I'm going to go ahead and give you the overview of what it's talking about. So we read 11 through 17. It'll come together. And if you want to go read it, you can actually go really into depth and understand it. So within Ezekiel 17, it'll talk about two eagles. It'll talk about a vine. All right. So, and that starts in the beginning of it. So what this is talking about is that when Josiah in 608, I think it was 608, was killed by the Egyptian Pharaoh Necho II. All right. When he was killed, Jehoiakim, his nephew, took over as the king of Israel for 3 years. And then Nebuchadnezzar went and said, hey, I'm taking over the Jerusalem, which he does, but he makes a deal with Zedekiah, a different person. He makes a covenant with him. So he takes Jehoiakim out of power, puts Zedekiah in power so that he can, well, they made an alliance, like, so no bad things kind of happen. Like, we're going to be together on this. So he got rid of one, replace him with another. Well, as you're going through the two eagles it's talked about, the first eagle talked about is talking about the king or the Pharaoh of Egypt that killed Josiah. And then later, and then you have Nebuchadnezzar is the second eagle that is talked about. And what happens at the end of this is Zedekiah breaks his covenant, and he's considered the vine in this parable. He breaks his covenant with Nebuchadnezzar and then goes down to the king, sends some people to the king back in Egypt to send armies and all these things to go ahead and try to take down Nebuchadnezzar, and he broke his covenant with him. So, and here's 11 through 17 of Ezekiel. It says, then the word of the Lord came to me. Say now to the rebellious house, do you not know what these things mean? Tell them, behold, the king of Babylon, which is done by the eagle, came to Jerusalem and took her king, which was Jehoiakim, and her princes, and brought them to him to Babylon. And he took one of the royal offspring, which now is Zedekiah, and made a covenant with him, putting him under oath. The chief men of the land had been taken away. So now Jehoiakim is no longer king. That the kingdom might be humble because of this oath, and not lift itself up, and keep his covenant that it might stand. But he rebelled against him, that is Zedekiah, rebelled against him by sending his ambassadors to Egypt so that they might give him horses and a large army. Then it questions, will he thrive? Can he escape the one who does such things? Can he break the covenant and yet escape? The answer to this is no. Homie don't last very long because he broke his covenant with Nebuchadnezzar. And God wasn't real happy with that. Because a lot of times we read about when there's an exile of the Jews, they're meant to be subordinate and show respect to the king, not to be up against him, because through their actions, they might get someone to turn. Okay. So but the point to this is, or if you wanted to go look, this is where it's talking about Nebuchadnezzar is the eagle, all right? And it's talking about him in Babylon. Then it reads on, it says, then as I looked, its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the ground. So its wings were plucked off. So if you go back to Daniel 4, there's a story in there, another prophecy or a vision, interpretation by Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar, want to know, what does this dream mean? What's going on? And what it boils down to, he says, for a time, the Lord is going to go ahead and pretty much make you insane. You are going to eat on all fours out on the ground and eat hay, eat dirt. There's all kinds of things, but he's completely lost his mind. He's completely out of it. He's not much of a ruler. But in 7 years after this period of time, I'm going to lift him back up and he'll become king again. And that's what this is talking about. When his wings are plucked off, he was no longer the king or a normal king. And he was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a mind of a man was given to it. So when he was lifted back up, he actually now professed that God was the Almighty God. So that's what that is talking about. So this is talking about the gold head. This is talking about Babylon. This is talking about Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? So that's the first one we're talking about, and the one of the statue. So there's number one. And now the next one, verse 5 says, and behold, another beast, a second one, like a bear. It was raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and it was told, arise, devour much flesh. Now we're into the second part. We're now into the silver. This is going into the Medo-Persian Empire. All right. Now, this thing like a bear. Now, I don't know how many people have actually watched the movie 300. If you haven't, kind of an interesting thing to watch. But what you have is you have the Spartans of 300 up against this Persian Empire, a massive empire. Now, they say it was 2.5 million to 300. That's a huge exaggeration. Huge. The number was more like 200,000. But still, that's to 300,000. That's still nearly almost 1,000 men to one that the Spartans were fighting against in this little valley-looking thing. And did they win? No. Did they destroy the heck out of them? Yeah, they hurt them bad. But the point to this is how Xerxes, this is how the Persian Empire, I shouldn't say just Xerxes, but how the Persian Empire moved. They had massive, massive armies like a bear. And it's like a bear in the woods. A bear don't hide from anything. Bear will walk right up to it. See, he's just going to chase you down. I mean, it went through, and that's how its armies work. They just like, here I come. They telegraph it. We're going to go take over this kingdom next year. And they would do it just because they were so big and so powerful. So, and to the point of them 300, go watch it, because interesting, the part of the movie where it shows them inside this valleyed wall, they're being very strategic, and the part of the movie shows Artaxerxes coming up at them with this wave of 2.5 million people, which wasn't that many, coming at them, and how they got by a trail that they didn't even think about is how they got overtaken. It's actually scripted in the Bible. So that section in there is actually accurate depiction of what happened besides the numbers. But anyways, the second was like a bear. It raised up on one side. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people, there's two views on this. Either one's fine, though I do disagree with one. That's just who I am. And this thing is, now you have the Persian Empire. This turns into the Medo-Persian Empire. So the 3 ribs that it's talking about has in its mouth, they are Babylon, Lydia, and Persia. So at the beginning, Persia's this massive empire. So if you want to go and throw up the map, Phil, let me give you a little bit of direction on this. Whoop, this one. Okay, so here's Persia. Now, you've seen it on that other big map. It's huge, all right? That was after this. But here's Persia, all right? And this says Media, all right? So Media had all this territory right up in here. And these are things we see, because here's the Babylonian Empire right here, and here's Egypt, Mediterranean Sea. Now, Media within itself, the town, the city, what do you want to call it, was sitting kind of right up in this area. And interesting about Media, yeah, we'll go with it just a second. So interesting about, no, we're not going to go into that right now. So anyways, that's where they were. So Persia, all right, decides to go ahead and conquer Media, its capital, if you will. Therefore, taking over all of this, becoming the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, so the difference on this one a little bit is Persia, they actually aligned with them, and Media still was a country, if you will, or still a nation that was essentially independent, but under the Persian rule. So anyway, so that's what happened. That's the first conqueror. And the reason why this is, that was Cyrus. King Cyrus is the one who set off and took down Media. So there is rib number 1. Then they conquered Babylon. So now Nebuchadnezzar, where he was, is now gone. And the next thing they conquered is way up there in, Lydia was next, but Lydia. So that would be the 3. It would be Media, it would be Lydia, and Babylon. Now, others say it's actually Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt, because Egypt was another empire or another thing that they defeated. Now, the reason why I disagree with this, and it's fine because they did take it over. They did take it over, but because the way this is worded in the beginning is it's talking about the bear on its side, right? So this is the point before Persia stands up. So then it takes over these 3 under Cyrus. Now it has the 3 ribs. It stands up, and it's told to stand up. And then later it says, and it rise and devour much flesh. Well, if it already conquered this, what else is going to get conquered? Well, the next thing was Egypt. And the reason why I kind of eliminate Egypt as being part of the 3 is because this wasn't done by Cyrus. This is done by Cyrus's son. So Cyrus was here, stood up, took over Media, then Babylon, and then Lydia, or vice versa on those 2. And then later, his son dove into the picture and took over Egypt. Now, if people disagree with that, go, well, no, it's the Medo-Persian Empire. Well, at the beginning, it was the Persian Empire. I don't care. It's cool. Either way, this here, for map reference, is everything colored essentially is the Medo-Persian Empire. And that's who conquered Babylon. Babylon, yeah. So that's a story on that. And the point of devouring much flesh, they did kill others. Don't think like, oh, we got this. We're just going to sit back and party. No, but that's why I throw the Egypt piece into it, because he did the first three and then went after that. But just so you guys don't know, now this is talking about the silver part of the body, gold, silver. The next one is the bronze. In verse 6, it says, after this I looked, and behold, another like a leopard, with 4 wings and a bird on its back, and the beast had 4 heads. Dang it. And dominion was given to it. Now, this one's talking about the Grecian Empire. This is Alexander the Great. Now, just like a minute ago, it's hard to fathom how Alexander the Great, with a little tiny army, so you've seen that entire thing of that's now the Medo-Persian. Greece is this little itty-bitty thing up in the left-hand corner. We'll get here to it in just a second. Go ahead and hit it up. Throw up the... Oh, yeah, it's right there. Boy, that's not very pretty. So, anyways, so this is all the Medo-Persian. This is Persia, Media, Lydia, Egypt, but they didn't have that little piece up there. There's Greece. That little thing conquered all of this. It's an amazing feat done by Alexander the Great. Was in his 20s, going up great kings and great battle-hardened people across all these nations, and he destroyed them. Why? Well, because A, he was very tactful, but instead of taking the bear approach, we'll just say it that way, instead of taking the bear approach, just throw his military on a line, I'm going to just go take out these guys, he was very tactful, very smart, and very, very fast. So we're like, that part of the Medo-Persian could telegraph, hey, I'm coming. There's nothing you could do about it. He could telegraph he's coming, and before they even set up, he was already there. Or if he knew they were coming after him, he knew how to counter it. So if you think of the movie Patriot, most people have seen this movie, you have the 2 lines, like boom, 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 just shoot each other and stab each other and blow up cannons and all this stuff, like the dumbest way in the world to fight. But then you had, with the Mel Gibson piece to it, he's out doing guerrilla warfare. He's doing other things out in the woods. He's much faster. They pre-planned. And that's how they were defeating militaries. Well, that was the concept behind what Alexander the Great did. He was a master military mind and defeated that entire empire with his little army, because he was that smart and that great. So the things about him was he was cunning, he was smart, he was fast, he was all those things. And now at the end of it, it says, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right, so this dominion, so the next one, please. So here is when Alexander the Great died, I think it was after 11 years. I could be a little bit wrong on that, but I think 11 years. 4 of his generals took over. All right, so this is now what you still see. This is the Grecian Empire. So four generals. One was Cassander, which you see up there in that top left corner. Another one was Antagonist. That was here. Seleucus was another general that took over this piece over here, the Medo-Persian area. And the last one over here is the Ptolemies. All right. So this didn't work out the best over time, blah, 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 blah. But this one we'll talk about a little bit next week, because this we already did a little bit, had to do with Antiochus Epiphanes, and this is where he comes from. So that's going to come up next week. We'll talk a little bit about that. Then, of course, you got the Ptolemies. Everybody knows who the Ptolemies are, right? Come on. How many people have not heard of Cleopatra? Yeah. So Ptolemy, when he took over, started what would be 12 or 13 reigns of the Ptolemies. So the pharaoh, Cleopatra's dad, his lineage were the Ptolemies. That's where that comes from. But they were called pharaohs. Cleopatra was number 7 as a female pharaoh. Her dad, Ptolemy, was number 12, I think, in the male lineage of this. So they last a long time. So I kind of figure people like the Ptolemies. I didn't know this till I did a study on Cleopatra. It's like, that's a weird last name. I thought your last name was like, Cleopatra or something. But that's where that comes from. So so from him, that is where Cleopatra comes from. And Cleopatra was the last pharaoh and died in 35 or 40 BC, just not too long before Christ. Just a little bit on her story. And this is interesting because later we're going to talk about this kind of in context to it. So when her dad was dying, he handed over the reins to her and her brother. All right. think it was the older brother, but either way, it might have been the younger brother. That's the older brother. And they got married. And that is because, much like you see, so how do I say this the right way? So they don't, in order not, okay, in our faith and our belief, now this is funny how religions are so closely matched that seems so far off. But in our faith and belief, what do we have? We have an incarnate God. Christ is the incarnated God. He's the human aspect of God. So it is believed by them that when Cleopatra and her boyfriend, her brother, get married, she becomes the incarnate of Isis, and he becomes the incarnate of Osiris. Two gods. So now they are the living embodiment of those gods. All right. So, and what's funny is people are like, oh, that's just weird, but we have the same thing. So if you think about how Satan would work, he's so deceptive. He can make religions look so much alike that it's really kind of hard to call it out. But then later it goes on, she's hanging out with Julius Caesar, and there's babies being made, and kills her brother and marries her other brother, and her sister wants to kill her. Whole weird thing, and then she gets killed in the end. We're not going down the Cleopatra thing, but I just want to give you guys a little insight of that. That's who that is. And a little thing on, sometimes you look at the way religions are and you're thinking, well, that's just stupid. That guy thinks he's a god. Well, what do the Jews think about Jesus? Oh, he thinks he's a god. Kind of interesting, the irony that goes on, and Satan's like a great player on these games, because then you could go over here talking garbage about them and like going, oh, don't you think the same thing? Yeah, but that's actually God. Well, see what I'm saying? Anyways, we'll drive on. I can go down these roads too far. All right, so yeah, that's it. So verse 7. All right. After this, I saw the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. Now I'm going to stop right there. This one is where they try to say, because the next word coming up, that this is talking about the Roman Empire. Again, it is not the Roman Empire. It is not the Roman Empire. You'll see that as this night goes on. Anyways, strong. It had iron teeth, because that word iron. Oh, this is the Roman Empire. It's not one. It devoured and broke in pieces, and stamps were left at his feet. It was different. Now, this last part we really want to pay attention to. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Now, horns represent, as you'll see, kings. It had 10 kings. I considered the horns, and behold, 3 came up among them another horn. So there is a beast. This beast had 10 little horns. And then these were already established, and another little one popped up. And among them was another little horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked from its roots. So there was the 10, the little one came up, and then it plucked 3 of the ones that were already there up from its roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now, that last part, we'll kind of repeat it, but I want to give an image and give an understanding of what we're talking here so you guys can picture this. There's going to be a map here in just a second. But before I do, this word plucked up by the roots. This is actually a good transliteration of something being pulled up by its roots. All right, so this little horn goes, you're dumb, you're done, you're done. Now, if you're watching movies, which everybody likes to watch movies, and you watch the Kirk Cameron thing of the Left Behind series that he put out, and I'm not dissing Kirk Cameron. I believe he has a true heart. I think all those things. I mean, he's got other great movies out there and all the things. But he is putting this to film on TV, and then we end up taking that as, oh, that's gospel. This is what happens. So the scene in this movie is he plays, the tribulation's already going. The Antichrist is already doing his thing. The rapture's already happened. And in this, the guy's actually name is, I had to write it down, Nikolai Carpathia. Now, what that actually means translated by Kirk Cameron, by the movie, was victory for the people. So, hey, that's a pretty cool name for this guy named Carpathia. The other thing is they also show him in the movie as a Roman descendant. Hence, I'm going to integrate Rome into this, but it takes over the United Kingdom. So we wonder why we get these silly things in our head. Now, within this movie, it shows a part where in this room, and Carpathia, the Antichrist, he's like, there's like 10 of these guys ruling around that are part of the UN. Anyways, somehow he does some magical stuff, and like people like don't really watch what's going on except for the reporter dude in there. But and he shoots 3 guys in the head. Boom, 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 boom. That was 4 shots. Well, he maybe missed the second one, but boom, boom, boom. He shoots them and kills them. Then everybody comes back to their normalcy, like they just got off some LSD or something. Like, oh, whoa, what happened? And he comes up with some great lie or whatever that he just killed them. So we have this picture in our head that this little king, this Antichrist, is going to kill 3 kings or 3 people in power. That's false. And this is where scripture actually matters, because if you start thinking that, and then these things start to happen, although this part would actually be after us anyways, but that you would not recognize it. So what it is, so here is the first time the word 3 horns comes up. There's another time in verse 20. This is why I'm going to tell you the words now. The word there is those 3 horns fell. That word is nephal. Nephal is the word fell. That can mean one of 2 things. It either means you fell, like you literally fell over, or it's also used in the word like you fall to your knees and praise the Lord. So it's an actual physical movement. The other form of nephal, to mean fell, is when you fall from a position of authority. Now, I could just stop there and go, this is what's happening, because that's actually what does happen, you'll see. But this is something that we get taught incorrectly. And I talk to a lot of people, and they don't know this. They think it's different. So we tend to think and believe, because we've taken 2 different scriptures, married them together, and said Satan fell and was sent to earth. He did not. I'm telling you, he did not. When it speaks of this in the Old Testament, I think it is Isaiah, it's talking about him falling from authority. At that point, he was not taken to earth. He was not kicked out of heaven and sent to earth. That we will study hasn't happened yet. It has not happened yet, because Satan still has the ability to be in heaven. Hence why, if you think about Job, he went and talked to God. He kept going after God that he wanted to take down Job. It tells us over and over that he is the person that goes before God and persecutes you and says all the bad things you basically do. And Christ's like, sorry, dude, I already paid for that. So I want you to understand that concept of fall, that he has not fallen to earth. You're going to find that out in Revelation. But this type of fall is a fall when you're falling for authority. So for instance, if you have a job, you have a manager, all right, and you do something stupid and you get yourself in trouble, that person can kick you out of being a manager and just make you a supervisor. You're still coming into the building to work. You just don't have the same authority no more. So that is what this is talking about, and that is the point, to the aspect of Satan. And after this, you guys want to ask questions, we can do it, but Satan has not been kicked to earth yet. I'm just going to repeat that again. Now, in verse 24, when it talks about the 3 horns again, it's actually going to use this next word, shafel. All right? So shafel means to abase, humble, humiliate, reduce something in quality or value, to degrade. All right? So this aspect of these 3 horns, one little horn comes up, he's not killing them. He's uprooting them, taking them from their authority, and he's humiliating them, which means, why would he be humiliating a king? Well, the obvious answer here, and which we'll find out later further through Revelation, is because they're not doing the job. They're not kinging the way they should be kinging. Now, go ahead and throw up the map really quick. All right. First of all, this is not going to be the end empire. Don't take that. And this is an example to hopefully give you guys a picture of this. So let's assume now the United States has 50 horns. All right. And there's no president. We're just independent, but we are come together for the same ideology, same beliefs, for whatever. We are a group of people. Right. Now we're already established. The United States is already there. All the little different kings, which we call them governors, but they're kings in this case. So then what happens is there's another little one that stands up and takes over an authority. As an example, U.S. Virgin Islands, they are not a state, but they are U.S. citizens. They cannot vote, but they are part of us, but they're not part of us. So what I'm trying to establish is size, being small. This is already established. They're kind of part of us, but they're really not part of us. That is this little horn we're talking about right here. So then something happens that we are having a problem, let's just say political. We can't get our heads out of our butts, and we're up here fighting, and we can't get things straight. But somehow this dude down here says, hey, no, I have the answer. And he has the answer. And everybody then follows this dude here. And then, but yet there's three kings, and we're going to pick on New York, Texas, and California. Three states that have all kinds of problems with political things and all that stuff, and they're also very big. And I don't want to, I'm picking on Texas because I live here too. So he's like, you guys can't get this right. You guys, every other state is doing the right thing. You're all on the same page, but you have so many internal problems because you can't king very well. You're not in power. You're not in power. You're not in power. I'm taking control. I'm going to humiliate you because you suck at your job. I hope that kind of paints the picture. This picture in a couple chapters is going to change to what it really is. But right now, I just want to give you a visualization and understanding of the concept of something established that's already there, something that's not, but will be, and will take over. Okay? That's the point of that. And no, this has nothing to do with Trump. We're not this beast or whatever. All right, so now, I'm going to read. Are you still on 8? Yep. So we're still on 8. I'm going to reread 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. So this is now going in and talking about the speaking great things, the little horn. Now, this is the area where the Antichrist is going to be coming from. He's the bad guy. All right, he's the one taking over. So now he's going to go in, and this is what we've always talked about and discussed, the thing of the abomination of desolation. All right, so he is the one that's now going to start speaking things in the temple, stop the sacrifices, and held himself above and greater than God. That's what this vision is starting to show. And then in verse 9, it says, as I looked, and here's the thing, the setup for it. This is another vision within it. Thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took a seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair on his head was pure, like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire. Okay, stop right there. So that last part of this, the Ancient of Days, the wheels, the fire, the woolish hair, we already discussed all this back in chapter 1 of Revelation, and we know it's talking about Jesus Christ. But in the very beginning, it says thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took a seat. The Ancient of Days, we know, is going to be Jesus Christ. But thrones, plural, multiple thrones were placed. What thrones? 25 thrones. Remember when John entered into the throne room, what did he see? 25 thrones with 24 elders, and one amongst them was the one that Jesus took, the 25 thrones. And as we got through Laodicea, which is the apostasy, the point of coming into there was they're getting ready, the preparation, everything is set to go into the tribulation. Christ is going to take that title deed to earth. He's going to crack seals, and then he's going to crack heads. So this is a shot of from the beginning to that point. And then now verse 10 says, a stream of fire issued and came out before him. Now, the stream of fire, now we're talking about when he's actually, what we'll see is the wrath of God, which the second half of the tribulation takes place. This is where he's actually casting that judgment now against that Antichrist. And then from that, it goes 1,000 thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were open. So it's showing the whole thing. So this next part, when it says, so here the great tribulations go in the second half, boom, he does his thing. All right. The fire is coming out. And then it says 1,000 thousands. And actually it says thousands served him, which means an innumerable number. Right? We're not going to try to count this. Who would be the thousands of thousands of thousands that served him? This is the point of being the, the royal priesthood. We are the ones that are going to be serving him during this time. Because then it says, and 10,000 times 10,000, and it also says 10,000 again, were before him. So we're serving. He's done all the things. The second half of tribulation, we're serving. And now these 10,000 times 10,000, which is an innumerable number again, but even a larger number, are standing before him. The court sat in judgment, and the books were open. The only place the books are open is at the great white throne judgment. We already talked about this. The book of life and all the other books that get opened at the same time. So there's a quick look. I see this dude talking. Here's what's going to happen in totality. And then verse 11 goes in and says, I looked then because of the sound of the great words that the little horn was speaking, And as they looked, the beast was killed and its body destroyed and given over to be burned with fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but their lives were prolonged for a season at a time. So there it is, talking about that fourth beast coming up. It's now going to get taken out. Christ, like, you are no longer in power and control. This beast that's headed by the Antichrist, I'm taking you out. His dominion is taken away. But that's when he returns. But their lives of the other great beasts, all the other nations of the world that have been part of this, are going to be prolonged for a season. There's that season and a time. That is the period, that thousand year millennium to before the great white throne judgment, which is a restatement to what we just read there between 9 and 10. All right. Verse 13, I saw the night visions, and behold, with clouds of heaven, there came one like a son of man. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and he was presented before him. And to him was given dominion and glory and kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. Stop. Did I put that up there? I did. This is a bad transliteration. It says that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. It's not what it says. This is this word down here. I had to put this down. Yiflikun, right here, yiflikun. It's a fun word. It does not translate should serve him. It translates as they will serve, they will pay reverence. So once Christ comes back and he takes dominion, it's not should. The people at that time should do those things, but they're not. This is saying they will serve. So now this is now talking about when Christ, if you want to say it this way, comes back the next time at the great white throne judgment, and his kingdom, his dominion shall not pass, and it should be forever, which is now you're talking about the new heaven, the new earth, the new Jerusalem. Because it follows up right here and it says, after they will serve, his dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom one that shall not be destroyed. Here on earth, this earth is going to pass away. That is why there's a new heaven, a new earth, and a Jerusalem. So this has now gone all the way through what's going to happen to judgment. And then after judgment, what's going to happen? He's taking his dominion, and we are all going to someplace else. And we will reverence, we will worship, we will serve him. There's not a should, we just will. Verse 15, as for me, Daniel, now this is when it gets interpreted now. As for me, Daniel, my spirit with me was anxious, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those who stood there and asked him the truth concerning all of this. So he told me, and made known to me the interpretation of the things. These four great beasts are four kings who shall arise out of the earth, but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. There is just a summary. Then I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth and iron claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. And about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, that's in the fall, the horn that had eyes and mouth that spoke great things, the abominations of the abominations, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with saints and prevailed over them until the Ancient of Days come. This is what we've talked about. So Israel is in play right now. Jerusalem's in play right now. They are not doing the right things. They're being faithless, but they are in country right now. But now this dude's coming in, the bad guy's coming in, and he's going to go after them again. And this is the point where they go into hiding, because they are the elect that go into hiding. And from that point in, then when he returns, they get to come out and they will possess the kingdom forever. But just before that, it says, until the Ancient of Days in 22, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. So here's this the judgment was given for the saints. What judgment was given for the saints? We talked about this in Ezekiel. We talked about this with the oil and the wine. We talked about this when they were underneath the table. The vindication. He promised them for a little bit of time, hold on, I will vindicate those who come down against you that believe in me. This is when the vindication happens. All right, verse 23. Thus he said, as for the fourth beast, there shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and trample it down, and break into pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of the kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another arise after them, the little tiny one. He shall be different from the former ones, just like the the Virgin Islands, a little different than us, as an example, former ones. And he shall put down, he shall humble 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High. He shall think to change the times of the law. And they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. For a time, Edon. For times, Edonin is 2. And for a half of an Edon. So that's 1 plus 2 plus a half is 3.5 years. This is the point to when the Antichrist is going to step in. And he is now basically, at this point, the ruler of everything on the earth. Everything's going to follow him, and everything falls under his control for 3.5 years. So there's the first half of the tribulation, 3.5 years. It's more of seasons and signs and understanding what's going to happen, that Christ is prepping it. Pay attention is what he's saying, because when this goes into effect, game on. I'm spitting that fire out. So that is the 3.5 years. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, the Antichrist, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Stop right there. It does not say shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. The word of is not used in the Aramaic. It's actually the people, the saints of the Most High. So maybe put the saints in commas. And it shall be given to the people, comma, the saints, comma, of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall, it goes back to that word again. This is not maybe, might, possibly, they will serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed, but I kept the matter to my heart. Okay, so that's done. Yeah, we're almost done here. All right, so I hope you're kind of seeing what's going to happen. I hope the pictures and the maps and everything, where these things are playing out. Using the U.S. map thing was just kind of a concept to get an idea, because we understand the U.S., how there is something established, there's something a little different, something small that's going to rise up but become part of that. We'll get to the real identity of this when we get, I think it's into chapter 9. We'll break it out. But if you notice, if you go back to Daniel 2, and we did the Nebuchadnezzar's dream and that big statue, it had the gold, the silver, the bronze, then the legs, or the bronze, and then the iron legs, right, which represent the Roman Empire. But if you remember, all it said within one sentence, and the legs were iron, and then the feet were of clay and iron. It only mentioned, that's the only mention, I'll repeat this, it is the only mention of the Roman Empire at all. So how can the Roman Empire be such a great empire if we don't even talk about a Roman Empire that's going to stand up against the entire world? Because it's never about the Roman Empire. We just went through 4 beasts. 4 beasts. And the third beast, which was the Grecian Empire, you notice how it came into, it crushed. It was the one that beat the Medo-Persian Empire, but it doesn't tell it what happens to it. And it doesn't roll into the Roman Empire, even though there was a vision. Nebuchadnezzar. Why is it, I'm going to make sure I write this right, yeah. So why is it just those 3? And why is the Roman Empire not talked about? Next week when we do 8, guess what's not talked about again? The Roman Empire. Still not talked about. Go to Ezekiel. Still not talked about. Go wherever you want. The Roman Empire is not talked about. Not how we think it, like we showed the maps up there. It's not standing back up. I'm saying that, but there's a reason. I'm going down this road. Why is it that only these were shown? One, give the answer here. I battled with this, like, why are we not seeing all of this? Why is it just specifically to this? Remember, this was written in Aramaic. So this was to who? This was to the Arabs. Now, if you think Jews for a second, we talked about this to Ezekiel, that they came out of Egypt. Pharaoh went out, smashed him, and they went to a promised land, screwed up, lost it. Started, got it back, screwed up, lost it. Babylon, then they're into Medo Empire, they lose it, get it back. Then they're during the Roman Empire, lose it, they come back, and now they're in the period of having coming back, they're going to lose again. So there is this timeline and a purpose. That message, that Ezekiel message, is to the Jews. Here's everything that's going to happen to you. So why is it that only these 3 are mentioned? Because it goes to the Arabs. Who would care or who would not care about the Roman Empire? The Arabs wouldn't care. If this was about the Roman Empire, they wouldn't care. Why is he telling the Arabs this? Could it be because it is the Arabs who were defeated once, defeated twice, defeated a third time if you want to include Pharaoh, another Arab, that they are the reason, so they understand the prophecy. You are the ones that are going to go ahead and go up against Jerusalem once again with the abomination of desolation. Think about it for a second. If I watch football, or you watch football, and I watch soccer, and me and you sit down and talk, you're not going to care what my team does, win, lose, draw, or anything else. No, I'm going to care about yours. Why would the Arabs care about anything that has to do with the Grecians that they followed? Why would they care about the Roman Empire? They wouldn't care. So why would God think it necessary to speak this in Aramaic to the Arabs so they understood what was going to happen at the end and understand what's going to happen to them at the time and the next time with the Medo-Persians? The answer is simple, and I know it because we haven't got through all this. It is because it is the Arabs that are going to stand up as this final empire that is talked about, the fourth beast, meaning they should be aware of this. And the other thing about the Roman Empire, why it's not mentioned, we make a big deal out of the Roman Empire. I mean, it's a huge thing because this is the time of Christ. But really, what kingdom was established at the Roman Empire? Is the bigger kingdom the Roman Empire? Or is it the kingdom that Christ brought and been prophesied for 4,000 years? We don't mention it too much because the Roman Empire isn't really that important. The kingdom that was established, the kingdom that Christ said he was going to establish on this earth, his kingdom actually started during that time. Now, I hope that kind of makes sense. And I mean, I might have to think about it. But then I keep mentioning, this is something people will question me about, and I have had this question, that I keep saying the word Arab. I keep saying the word Arab. Yes, I do keep saying the word Arab because they're Arabs. Now, people will take this like, oh, hold on a second. No, they have to be from Arabia. That's Arabs. That's them. No, it does not have to be. Because even if you look at the Arab revolt, the two flags we threw up a while ago, that Arab revolt didn't include everybody from Arabia. And beyond that, when you actually go look this up, go look up, where did Arabs come from? It goes so far back in history, they say it's between 50 and 75,000 years ago is where the Arabs came from. There was no Arabia 50 or 75,000 years ago. They are all of the same descendant tree. We will get into this because this is going to come down to the concept of Shem, Ham, and Japheth that came out of the ark with Noah. And then this also going to the Israelites and the other peoples. But where was I going with that? Oh, so I keep saying Arab. And the thing is, people say, well, there's no Arabs. Wrong. How many people have read and know the story of Exodus? Everybody knows the exile. Who left? Who did Moses take with him? The Jews, the animals, and a mixed multitude. That last word, E-R-E-B, does it sound like Arab? Maybe it does. Here's the definition. Arab or Marab with the article prefix from the word Arab. Figure, what, really? Now, it can mean a mixture of clothes or a mongrel race, meaning Arab, a mingled people, a mixture, a multitude, desert dwellers, and nomads. When you're reading the Bible and you read about nomads and desert dwellers, because it comes up in the Bible, have yourself a little fun. Go get on Google somehow and have it translate for you. The word's going to come up to the word mix, M-I-X, Arab, because they even consider themselves nomads and desert dwellers. In fact, the Bible talks about how there was trade between the Mesopotamians, between the Greeks, with the desert dweller nomads of Arabia as well. But that word, in context, if it's talking about a people, the word mix is talking about Arabs. Fast forward, we now have the Medo-Persian Empire, we have the Babylonian Empire, two empires that suppressed the Jews. What annoys God more than anything else is suppressing the Jews. Who is the most likely of a beast that will ever stand up that is going to suppress and kill and try to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth? England? The Roman Empire? The UN? The United States? Exactly. Japan? Here's the point. Can you show up the original map we ever had? I'm just going to do the last thing, then I'll end it. There it is. So here is the original map we ever had. So we've seen all of this to here, all across, all the way up here into Greece, all the way up into here, and actually the Medo-Persian Empire went into India. They conquered a lot of stuff. Okay, so all that is taken up. And if you remember, and here would be Rome is over here. There's Italy, Rome, and here's, I don't know what you want to call it, the European nations and all this stuff. But also, if you remember, we were reading in Ezekiel, and we were understanding who comes against Israel. Its neighbors. Look at the countries we've been talking about. Who are its neighbors? It's not the Roman Empire. There's only one source of people it can be, because there's one source of people that absolutely despise and hate the people of that little itty-bitty country. I'll let you guys sleep on it and think on it. But anyways, thanks for your time tonight. That's all I got. So if you got any questions, I know I'm probably going to have some questions of people throwing tomatoes at me or whatever. But hey, ask them.